Hello, welcome back to my very personal finance channel. This is for the month of December 2020. I just want to say, first of all, before we start anything, investing's not about how much money you make, it's about how much money you can save. That's very important because there's a lot of people who think that they're too poor to invest, and it's simply not true. Everyone can afford to put at least some money aside, and the more that you put aside, the more able you are to put the money aside. I don't know if that makes any sense to people, but I've always found that the more money I have saved, the more I can save. Just wanted to get that out there, just for in case anyone thought that maybe they don't make enough money to invest properly. Of course you can. If you've got a spare pound, you can invest. Now, with that being said, I suppose we'll move on to our investments for this month. So we've not made too many purchases this month. We've only purchased 10 shares of AGNC, which is just this share here. Purchase 10 more because they pay a monthly dividend, so that should net us about another 70 pence per month. I know it doesn't sound like much, but pennies make pounds, and with it being an extra near enough £1 a month, it's gonna give us nearly £12 per year. Other than that, purchased another 20 BP shares, which are just here. That's just because we had 80 and I wanted a nice round number. I also really like the idea of purchasing BP because they're a green energy company. Obviously, moving forwards, they're going to be investing more in solar and wind power, which is what the government's trying to push as well. So 2021, there's going to be a green energy initiative where they start to give money out to companies for providing green energy over fossil fuels. So even though BP have got loads of oil plants and pipelines and all that sort of stuff, it's now essentially useless to them. So they're restructuring, which is absolutely fine by me. I think in a few years' time, we'll be seeing a lot more of of BP, and I think that they'll be up to about £4. Whether I'm right or not, no idea. But that personally, I think £4 is a good buy, and anything under £3 for BP at the moment, more than happy with. One notable thing to mention, or rather two notable things to mention. Firstly, Nordic American Tankers. The biggest loser we've got is down £62. So this brings up the question of, do you sell and take the hit, or do you assume that your initial purchase of Nordic American Tankers was a good buy, and that them being so cheap is now to be considered a bargain and continue buying? That's sort of the question I'm trying to answer myself. I'm not sure yet. I still think it's quite a good buy, but whether I'm right or not, I don't know, because if you were to look at the graph, you can just see it's consistently trending downwards. So not too sure what to do there. At the moment, I'm just going to hold. I'm not going to put any more money in. I'll just hold it, but I might change my mind in a couple of weeks. Another thing to note is Powerhouse Energy. This one here, another green energy company. These guys are relatively young. They've just started production on their first energy plant, which I think is what's driven this this exponential growth. So if you have a look here, this is the Powerhouse Energy gap. It's basically 3 pence here, which is where we bought, and then it's up there at 10p. So that big old line represents a 200% growth, which I'm more than happy with. I only wish I'd have put more money into it, but 3,500 shares at 3 pence per share, and we're up £242, which is 228%. You can't really complain at that. So there are purchases and some notable stocks. We've also had actually a really good month for dividends. So far for dividends, we have received £9.40 from BAE Systems, £1.50 from AGNC Investment. Bear in mind that is 20 shares, so with our 30 shares that will hopefully be £2.10p, but that depends on the exchange rate. So that'll be £2.10p in January. We have received £3.13 from BP. Bear in mind again that was 80 shares and not 100. So hopefully we'll receive a slightly bigger dividend next time. BP do pay quarterly, so that's a nice touch. And we've received £1.47 from Nordic American Tankers. Like I say, they're our biggest loser. And even though they are losing, they're still giving us a pretty decent dividend, because again they pay quarterly. That brings us to a grand total for the month of December of £15.50, which I think is fantastic, really. Compared to last month, it's actually a 34% increase. So, I mean, this whole year, even though it's been absolutely disastrous for literally everyone, we've still managed to invest and financially create some decent progress. So I'm very happy with that. We'll definitely be continuing into 2021 with investments. I'm going to start looking at diversifying, because I'm very UK based. I have tried to diversify into America, but as you can see, they're actually our biggest losers. So that's obviously not, well, I wouldn't say it's gone too well. I wouldn't say it's gone poorly, but only time will tell. So we'll look at diversifying out. On some slightly more personal news, we've bought a house. So that has thrown all of my personal finances just up in the air. I've got no idea what's going on at the moment. I don't know what money's going where. So I've created a flowchart more for me than it is for you, but I thought it might be interesting for anyone who's looking into personal finance to sort of see how my mind works. So obviously we've got the missus, who's also contributing, and me. She makes an undisclosed amount of money, so I'm not going to tell you how much she makes, but she does put £360 into our shared bank account, and I also put £360 into our shared bank account. So that is to cover the bills, and it gives us a decent cushion as well for anything unexpected. The premise being that if we both keep just putting this flat rate in, eventually we'll build a really, really decent pot in there, maybe a few grand, and then we can take it out, put that to use on the house. My £2,000, as you can see, so £360 goes into the shared bank account. I then invest £200, which is 10% of my total payment, and then the rest goes to my personal savings. And of the rest, 605 goes to the mortgage, and then it's 835 left over in my personal savings. So that's what I've got to spend for the month, which is £200 a week, and I think that's a really good amount. It's a lot more than some people have got to live off anyway per week, and it's going to give us a decent opportunity to save up to do things to the house. So we need a couple of new windows, a new door. The basement's flooded, so we're going to have to do some work in there to sort of, I don't know, tank it, maybe put a damp course in, something along them lines that will just sort of give us a more functional room, and all that costs money. Collectively, we're going to just pool our funds and we'll see where we get to. But in theory, we're looking pretty strong. It's going to take me December and January to figure out exactly where all my money's going, bills-wise and things like that, just so that we can have a more clearer picture. But I think that's really important. It's almost like a personal inventory of exactly what you're spending, and you should definitely take the time to do it yourself and figure out exactly where your money's going if you've found that you've too much month at the end of the money, as it were. Now, other than buying a house, I've also made an investment. Before I started in stocks and shares, I was putting money into RateSetter. It was more lucrative at the time to put money into RateSetter than it was to put it into the banking system, just because of the interest rates on ISAs and things like that. So I put my money into RateSetter. Now, RateSetter was paying 3% at the start of the year, and then in May, because of coronavirus, they reduced their rate down to 1.5. So everyone was getting half rate, but the half that they were still collecting, by the way, from people who were paying, nobody got a break. None of the borrowers got a break. They still collected the whole rent. But the half that they were stripping from their investors, they were putting into a provision fund, so that should anybody default or fail to be able to pay, the RateSetter could then cover the lender, i.e. me or the person lending, of the payment, so they wouldn't go without, which I think is pretty decent of them, to be honest. With that, a lot of people tried to take the money out. I actually didn't take money out until after RateSetter had been bought by Metro Bank, because I don't want to be in the banking system. I want to utilise the banking system as minimally as possible, because if you save your money in the bank, if you use the banking system for anything other than just storing funds, for anything other than paying bills out of, you essentially lose about 2% a year to inflation. So to me, it begs the question of what's the point? And you don't notice it over a year, but over 10 years, over 20 years, if all you've ever done is hold money in that account, you've essentially lost 2% a year for every year your money's in the bank. Whereas down here, we can put our money in the stock market and we can make 20%. So why would you not? It just doesn't make any sense to me. With that being said, I'll be coming into roughly £1,000 in hopefully the next sort of few days. I'm still weighing up what to do. I don't know whether I should put it into my stock market and just put a big old chunk in. I don't know whether I should put it in my stock market account and then stagger it, and maybe instead of investing £200 a month, invest £400 for the next 5 months until the £1,000's gone. Or I don't know whether I should buy something physical, buy something like gold or silver, which, that'd be nice, just to have something to actual physical to hold rather than all these pretend stocks and shares. So that's about where we're at for this month. It's not been too bad, like I say. Really, really solid month for dividends. Really solid month for dividend growth. Really solid month for portfolio growth as well. I mean, that £676. It's, granted it's paper profits, but it's there, and I could sell out completely and I'll make 600 quid or nearly 700 quid, which I think is just brilliant. It also gives me a nice cushion for when the inevitable stock market drops again, because it will, because that's just the way it works. So new house, dividends looking good, stock market's looking good, soon to be £1,000 up from rate setter, and not sure what to spend it on. That's about the takeaways for December. I'll update again in January. Thanks for listening. Bye.